Thanks heaps, Mel. Maybe can we swap? Sorry.
That's okay.
On.
That's okay.
Okay. So, yeah, it's okay. Thanks, Mel. And it's super cool being here with you guys all this morning. Yeah, I think you're all amazing. Well, I can guarantee you that no one in this room is untouched by pain and loss. All of us have struggled and have at some time felt broken and hopeless. Now, I am not here today to tell you how I finally won my personal battle with the darkness, because my battle isn't over, and it may never be. But I can tell you how I keep going and why. My sense of adventure and love for travel started from a very early age, as my parents regularly took us on overland trips across the country, always exploring, always living in the moment. And thanks to my dad's love of the outback and animals when we were growing up, there was a never-ending stream of strays and injured wildlife for us to look after. Now, I remember when I was in first grade, our teacher asked everybody in the class to draw a picture of what we wanted to be when we grew up, and I drew this. I had my heart set on being a nurse, and I was determined to travel the world, particularly throughout Africa. As a teenager, I spent as much time as possible working at my parents' cake shop to save money for traveling. Now, one day, a gifted young photographer walked into our shop dripping wet after a surf and ordered one of my dad's famous meat pies and a vanilla slice. His name was Cameron Bloom, and I thought he was pretty spunky and seemed like a really nice guy, so I asked him out. And thank God I did. He turned out to be the love of my life. In our first few years together, we'd covered half the world. We didn't have much money, but we were always prepared to rough it in order to see places that were off the beaten track. We hitched our way across Turkey and crossed the border into Syria and instantly fell in love with the Middle East. We camped out under the stars in the deserts of Jordan and visited ancient cities like Aleppo and Palmyra that sadly now are just ruins. The more remote and exotic, the happier we were. And I got to travel to Egypt, the place I drew all those years ago. And Cam and I also had the privilege of meeting one of my heroes, Dr. Catherine Hamlin, who 50 years ago founded the Addis Ababa Fistula Hospital in Ethiopia. Catherine committed her entire adult life to healing the broken bodies and restoring the dignity of young Ethiopian women. I am still in awe of the resilience and bravery displayed by these women, mostly just teenage girls. The humiliation and suffering they endured was heartbreaking. Catherine and her team represented everything I wanted to be when I first decided to become a nurse. After being together for almost 10 years, Cam and I got married, and a few years later, our family was complete, with 3 boys under 4, Reuben, Noah, and Oliver. From an early age, we urged them to make the most of the great outdoors and to get outside and enjoy the sunshine. And thankfully, they didn't need much encouragement. Playing with my 3 boys and making them laugh made me happier than I ever dreamed was possible. Now, I am not saying I was always the world's greatest mum, but it certainly brought out the best in me and boosted his immune system. The ocean also played a huge part in our lives. Surfing was in our blood, and pretty soon we were doing everything together. I always imagined that Cam, the boys, and I would grow old surfing at our favourite beach breaks, and we would never stop travelling. Our life was kind of perfect. Perfect for us anyway. Perfect for me. All of my dreams had somehow come true. I travelled throughout Africa and beyond. I'd become a nurse, a wife, and a mother to 3 beautiful boys. I'd followed my passion and found true love without losing my independence. I was the person I was always meant to be. The person I wish I still was. When the 3 boys were finally old enough for international travel, we decided to take them to Thailand. After arriving in Phuket, we realised that 2 days was enough for us. We were looking for somewhere less crowded and touristy, so we headed north, far away from the chaos of Patong. We drove all day until we found a beautiful little hotel on a palm tree-lined beach in the middle of nowhere. When I woke up the next morning and walked across the sand to swim in the sparkling waves with my young family, I was so happy. It was everything we were searching for. The boys were busy building themselves a cubby house from driftwood and collecting coconuts, and we were all looking forward to riding bikes up to a local fishing village nearby. I remember thinking, life doesn't get much better than this. But I had no idea that this would be my last perfect moment. After our morning swim, we all climbed up to an observation deck to take in a stunning view of the coast. As we planned our day ahead, Cam was happily snapping pictures while the boys were sipping tropical fruit drinks. At some point, I leant against the safety rail and it failed to do the one thing it was built for. The steel railings fell away and I fell with them, 6 meters straight down onto the concrete tiles below, where I lay broken and still in an ever-expanding pool of my own blood. Ollie, just 7 at the time, vomited with shock. Noah stood there speechless, with tears streaming down his cheeks. And Ruben, in a choked whisper, asked his dad if I was going to die. And Cam screamed for help, again and again. When the paramedics arrived, I was strapped onto a spinal board and we were all bundled into an ambulance and driven 3 hours to a hospital. It was several days before I was stable enough to be operated on. I was not aware of all the hushed conversations about whether I would live or die. I woke up in hospital 3 days after surgery. There were tubes coming out of my neck, out of my arms and my back. I couldn't sit up, I could barely move, my whole body was battered. Both of my lungs had ruptured and my left lung had completely collapsed due to my chest cavity filling with blood. My skull was fractured in several places and my brain was bruised and bleeding. The headaches were incredible. I could barely speak or even think, and I had absolutely no idea my back was broken at T6, T7, just in line with my chest. The horror didn't seem real. All I cared about were my precious ashen-faced boys. When I was finally reunited with Cam and the boys, I kept apologizing for ruining our beautiful holiday. Seeing my family suffer, all because of me, made me feel sick with guilt. I mean, what kind of idiot falls off a balcony? What kind of mother exposes their children to this kind of horror? And what kind of wife shatters her body and her family and leaves her husband to pick up the pieces? I felt so terrible for putting them all through this. Once stable enough, I was transported to Bangkok, where plans were made to medevac me back to Australia. And none of the Thai doctors actually told me I was paralysed. They said I was suffering from spinal shock and normal nervous system function should return. A long 3 weeks later, I was finally flown home, accompanied by an Australian doctor and a Thai nurse. I remember how embarrassing it felt being wheeled through Sydney Airport in my Thai Airways pyjamas with everybody looking on. Instead of the excitement of being greeted by family and friends, I was met by ambulance officers and taken straight to the spinal unit at Royal North Shore Hospital in Sydney. And this is where I learned the awful truth. A young doctor came to see me after reviewing my MRI scans to tell me that on a scale of moderate to severe, my injuries were definitely severe. I then nervously asked him the question I never wanted to ask: will I walk again? The absurdity of it overwhelmed his bedside manner, and he gave me the answer I never wanted to hear. No, you won't. I cried pretty much all day, every day for the next month. Sleep was my only sanctuary. I craved oblivion and I hated waking up. When I finally did open my eyes, I would ask the nurses if I could be taken into the bathroom, where I'd lie beneath the running shower. I closed my eyes tight and do my best to try to imagine I was surfing again, and that the shower was the spray of the breaking waves washing over me. But this beautiful illusion never lasted long enough. The pain would shatter my sense of peace and drag me back into the waking nightmare that was my life, and the tears would begin again. whether on a surfboard or a soccer field. I never doubted my physical strength or sense of balance. So it was a painful surprise when I found it so incredibly hard to get into a wheelchair for the first time. I had no idea where 3/4 of my body was. Nothing felt right. With no control over my core muscles, I could barely sit up, and I needed 3 people to reassure me I wasn't going to fall. Now, hospital visits were always bittersweet. I loved seeing the boys, but I also hated them seeing me this way. And they did their best to cheer me up, while I did my best to reassure them I was fine. We all got pretty good at lying to make each other feel better.
Yeah, man, I'm waiting for you guys to get here.
Oh, it's so... I'm moving. I put your face.
Yeah, it's Easter. I haven't even given you a kiss.
Know how you can sit up now.
Yeah, it'll get better and better, don't worry. It won't look so abnormal.
You can just do that.
Now, while I spent a total of 7 months in hospital and rehab, Cam was frantically building ramps and knocking down walls in our house to make it more accessible. He was also looking after the 3 boys, or that's what he said, and keep working as a photographer, all at the same time. Now, our house has always been pretty chaotic, but what I loved most about this short video, on top of the fact that our 10-year-old is preparing dinner, is that the boys were able to turn a negative into a positive. It illustrates just how resourceful and resilient kids can be.
Could you get it?
Cam was amazing, but despite his heroic efforts, there were some things he couldn't fix. No one could. So what may surprise you is that the worst day of my life wasn't the day I fell and broke my back, or the day the doctor told me I would never walk again. It was actually the day I came home from hospital. I have always loved our house, but when I wheeled through my front door all those months later, I realised that nothing would ever be the same again. When viewed from a wheelchair, our house wasn't how I remembered it at all. The perspective was completely different. The once familiar sanctuary of love and comfort became an alien landscape strewn with obstacles. This wasn't the precious nest I'd made for my 3 babies. It didn't feel like my home. I didn't belong here anymore. My accident had made my husband both a single parent and a full-time nurse. Even my kids had to help look after me. Early one morning, when Cam had to leave for work, and I was trying my best to be independent and get dressed myself, Ollie wandered into our bedroom and without hesitation helped me pull up my undies. It was humiliating, and I hated that the roles had now reversed. But Ollie thought nothing of it, and he happily chatted away like normal. Of course, I appreciated his kindness, but it still tore me apart. I had become completely dependent upon other people. I felt like I was a burden to those I loved most, and I was no longer my own person. Filled with shame and anger, I shut myself off from the world, and I didn't want to see any of my old friends because to me, they represented the life I had lost. And seeing everybody heading off to the beach or going for a run just rubbed salt into my very raw and open wounds. No one understood what was going through my mind. Not that I wasn't grateful for the wonderful people trying to help, but I felt broken and useless. I was a prisoner in my own body, 3/4 of which was all but lifeless. All I wanted to do was to get back out on my surfboard or my mountain bike and be free. I just missed the old me. My sense of who I was withered away, as did my will to live. In those days, the constant pain and hopelessness was overwhelming, and I frequently thought about suicide. And I don't mean every other week or even every other day. I mean almost every hour of every day. The emotional breakthrough for me came when Noah found an injured baby magpie that had been blown out of her nest just outside my mum's house. Having tumbled 20 metres through countless branches to land in the car park below, it was a miracle that she was still alive. Now, we were sure she wouldn't have lasted more than a few hours if it didn't help. So we carefully picked her up, carried her back to the car, and sped home. And the boys found an old laundry basket and made up a tiny bed. They were so excited. It was like we'd just brought home an adorable feathered puppy. Now, we named her Penguin because she had wobbly, oversized feet, a short black beak, and a fluffy chest, just like a little baby penguin. Now, the first few days were touch and go, but she quickly got stronger, and before long, she was perching on a stick over her basket. Now, unlike most people, I don't wake up wondering whether my day is going to be good or bad. It's always going to be bad unless I actively do something to make it good, and nothing feels as good as helping others. Shoving food into that greedy little beak without getting my fingers nipped brought me enormous joy, and it actually brought our family closer together. The boys and I finally had something that made us all happy. I honestly thought we were saving Penguin's life, but what I didn't realize at the time was that, in a way, she was saving my life as well. And seeing that adorably ugly little face also helped me remember how to smile and even laugh for perhaps the first time since my accident. And whenever I was caring for Penguin, I instantly stopped thinking about my own problems. And it wasn't just me. Everybody's focus shifted to Penguin, which was a huge relief. Gone were the well-intentioned questions from friends and family about how I was feeling and how sorry they were for what had happened to me. Everybody was way more captivated by our crazy little bird. The boys suddenly had a reason also to race home from school. Penguin's beautiful song welcomed them home every afternoon and filled our house with a positive energy that genuinely transformed our lives. When Cam was at work and the kids were at school, Penguin volunteered to be my constant companion. She would either be on my lap or on my shoulder keeping me company, and sometimes she even pretended to be my personal trainer. At no time ever was Penguin kept in a cage. She was always free to leave, but she chose to stay with us. We were more than free food and a warm bed. We were family. Now, for about the first 6 months, she slept inside up on our windowsill, during which time, as you can imagine, she completely redecorated our white lounges. We all agreed it was time for her to move out. So at dusk, when Cam would put her to bed in the frangipani tree in our backyard, after being taken to her tree, she'd fly back to the kitchen window and stare through with a sad face, making us feel so guilty. And then we just let her back in. But over time, the frangipani tree did become her roost. And every morning, just after sunrise, she'd make a specific call at the back door demanding to be let in. Once she was inside, she'd run down the hallway and jump up either into one of the boys' beds or with Cam and I to have a little play or just fall asleep again. By now, Penguin was an integral part of our family life, and she certainly knew how to make herself at home. Whether it was helping herself to muesli in the morning, making sure Ollie was brushing his teeth properly before school, it felt like the boys had adopted a baby sister. Although sometimes, especially in the mornings, the boys weren't always ready to play. His eyeball was fine, by the way. Now, just as I worried over Penguin when her health or injury seemed too great, Penguin somehow knew when I was hurting or feeling down, and she would try her best to cheer me up. She would chat away and sing, but would never allow me to wallow for too long, and reminded me that there would always be better days ahead. Penguin's ability to bring happiness into our shattered lives is something I will always be thankful for. It's humbling to think that such a small creature could make such a big difference and leave a lasting impression on all of us. Penguin reminded me on a daily basis that we are all part of nature. And indeed, the more connected to nature we are, the happier we feel. Although sometimes, to be honest, when it was all too much to bear, we would just sit outside and stare up at the sky together, hoping and wishing for better days ahead. Now, by far, my all-time favourite memory of Penguin was on Ruben's 13th birthday. By this stage, she was spending more and more time away from the house exploring, which was a good thing. From day one, we wanted her to be wild and free. And sometimes she'd be away for a few days, or even up to a week at a time, and we would be so excited when she'd fly back home. But on one Christmas morning, she flew away and she didn't come back. The days turned into weeks, and then a month went by, and we were worried that maybe something had happened to her, or hoping that perhaps she'd found a boyfriend. And she'd been gone for 6 weeks when Ruben's birthday came around. Now I remember saying to Ruben, "Imagine if Penguin came back today." To which he replied, "That would be the best birthday present ever." And then this happened.
Holy shit. That's not Penguin.
She always comes. She came back on Christmas, the exact same day. I reckon you were sent by Jesus.
No, seriously. What are you paying?
It was a pretty cool surprise, and I'm sorry about swearing, you guys. It's easy to fixate on what you can't do or don't have. After my accident, I couldn't think about anything except what I'd lost. Now, I used to complain at rehab that I'd never be able to do any of the things that I used to love doing, like surfing, mountain biking, and playing soccer. So I suggested to the sports recreational officer, maybe I could kayak. Within 2 weeks of coming home from rehab, I was on the water kayaking. At first, it was very unnerving, I'm not going to lie. I had visions of myself drowning while strapped into an upside-down kayak. But with the help of my family and a wonderful coach named Gay Hatfield, I soon got the hang of it. I began to glide across Narrabeen Lake with comparative ease. When I was out on the lake, I was surrounded by nature and finally free from my personal prison. I'd found something new, something that truly made me feel alive again. I loved the challenge, I wanted to get better, and I wanted to go faster. Life is so much better when you are working towards a worthwhile goal. I kayaked almost every day and started hitting the gym with a vengeance. My strength, energy, and morale increased enormously. I went in a few races, and in March of that year, I was selected onto the Australian Paracanoe team. And before I knew it, Gay and I were heading to Italy for the World Championships. At my best, I was 12th fastest in the world. And although I never won a medal in Italy, it was a wonderful experience to travel again and to have Cam and the boys come over to support me. But while I love the benefits and excitement of elite competition, the truth is that winning races and medals was never my real goal. I just wanted to get back out in the water. I just wanted to feel like my old self again. Now, before my accident, there was one place that meant the world to me. It was a rocky outcrop on the cliff at Palm Beach in Sydney that overlooked the Tasman Sea. It's where I went to escape, and also where Cam and I would take the boys for a bit of fun and adventure. After the accident, I craved the beauty and solace of our rock more than ever. But the kilometre-long, incredibly steep, rocky track to the top were the complete opposite of wheelchair accessible. When I was feeling down, I'd often visualise being up there, soaking in the view, smelling the sea air, listening to the wind whistle through the casuarina trees and the waves crashing onto the rocks far below. It broke my heart knowing that I wouldn't see the place that meant so much to me ever again except in my memories. And Cam always did his best to make my life more enjoyable, but this meant he often dreamt up weird and wacky ideas to get me out of my wheelchair and up on my own 2 feet. Although I always appreciated his efforts, being tied to the Bunnings trolley was not one of his finest moments. But it was on my first Christmas after the accident that Cam really excelled himself. He woke me up at 4:30 and said, "I'm taking you somewhere." He bundled me into the car, and when we arrived at Palm Beach car park, I was mortified when I saw 4 of our friends standing there waiting for us. Now I had no idea why everybody was looking so excited. And it was then that Cam revealed my Christmas present, a handmade bamboo stretcher with my stripy beach chair tied to it. And he said, "We're going to carry you all the way to your rock." So the boys proudly lifted me onto the chair and took me more than 1 kilometre along the beach and then up the steep ascent to the top. Waiting for us at the very end at my rock was Reuben. My eldest son had climbed up half an hour before the rest of us and had covered the ground with flowers to make this amazing scene even more beautiful. I was so overwhelmed by everyone's kindness and so happy to have finally returned to this special place that has always meant so much and that I thought was lost to me. After eating breakfast, Cam and Reuben left me sitting on my rock, giving me what they knew I wanted most, the moment of peace and solitude I had been longing for. I sat there for a long time, looking out over the ocean and listening to the waves below, and surrounded by wild beauty on every side. I felt so thankful to be reconnected to nature and grateful for the reminder that I could be sitting at home feeling sorry for myself or sitting in this awesome spot feeling the best I had in months. As I thought about this unforgettable day, I realized anything is possible if you are creative and determined enough to make it happen. And perhaps most importantly, I've learned that having the courage to ask for help when I need it can mean acknowledging that you can't always do everything on your own. After my accident, I was forced to give up doing many of the things that made me feel happy. But knowing my rock is still within reach makes me feel better about the many challenges that lie ahead. Now, every day, someone somewhere in Australia will have their lives devastated by a spinal cord injury. I have not accepted that I'll be in a wheelchair for life, and I never will. But while I'm desperately waiting for a miracle to happen, I have to adapt, stay fit, and find new ways to live the best life I can. That's not to say I don't feel down from time to time. Oh, I definitely do. Some days are incredibly hard for me. And even on my good days, I still hate what has happened to me and the devastating impact my injuries have had on my family. But I have learnt the hard way that there is something that can affect anyone and is even more debilitating than a spinal cord injury, and that is self-pity. Sitting around feeling sorry for yourself will not make you or anyone else feel better. It will not make you stronger. It will not make you a better person, and it will not help you win your personal battle with the darkness. Now, I want to tell you about a journey I think about when I do start to feel sorry for myself. My very first trip to West Africa was on my own when I was 22. Cam had to fly back to Australia for work, so I took up a private nursing job in England to save up enough money to complete what was for me something of a personal pilgrimage. I flew from London to Dakar in Senegal, where I joined an overland expedition that was travelling across the African continent by truck. Now, I didn't know anyone, but luckily there were several other young travellers from Australia on board who I quickly bonded with, and who were great fun, including a lovely young guy from Wagga named Anthony, an extremely thoughtful person with a big heart and an infectious smile. Everyone who met Anthony adored him. Now, Ant's lifelong dream was to see the mountain gorillas in Uganda. He was so excited that at age 26, he was finally going to make this a reality. Now, it wasn't the most comfortable journey, bouncing along endless, bumpy and dusty roads, but we all had such a fantastic time. After Senegal, we drove through Mauritania, Mali, and then on to Burkina Faso, where I had my day pack containing my camera, cash, and traveller's checks stolen, leaving me stranded. And it broke my heart, but I had no choice to fly back to London, promising Aunt and the others I'll try to meet up with them later. It was heartbreaking to watch the truck rumble away without me. Now, Aunt and my other friends travelled on through Benin, Nigeria, Cameroon, Central African Republic, and the Congo. When the truck finally crossed the Congolese border and arrived in Uganda on the 25th of August, 1994, Aunt could hardly contain his excitement, knowing that the very next day he was going to see the mountain gorillas. I'm told it's pretty much all he could talk about over dinner. And even afterwards, while washing dishes in the huge, colourful plastic tubs set up on tables beside the truck. Aunt had such a great sense of humour, and in my mind I can clearly see him laughing and his eyes lit up by an African sunset as he scrubbed pots and dried plates. But at that moment, without warning, violent terrorists, local rebels, or possibly a paramilitary unit from neighbouring Rwanda threw a hand grenade at our truck, and it exploded right where Anthony stood. Anthony bled to death on the way to hospital that night. He never saw a mountain gorilla. He never turned 27. His killers were never brought to justice. It hurts so much to share this story, but it's so important you understand that life is such a fragile and precious thing. And my life has not been easy since I broke my back. But who am I to complain about my misfortunes while I'm still alive? And so many wonderful people like Aunt aren't here to chase their dreams. No matter who you are or what you've been through, you are blessed to be alive. Because as long as you are alive, there is hope. And with hope, just about anything is possible. Now, self-pity will throw 100 reasons in your face to give up. But you only need one reason to keep going. Because you're alive, and therefore you can. Now, kayaking gave me the confidence to get back out in the water, but it took 5 more years until I was able to reconnect with the ocean again. At first, I was afraid of the water. I didn't think I could swim or enjoy the waves anymore. I was embarrassed about my withered legs and weird swimming action, and I hated being carried to and from the shore break. It wasn't how I remembered it at all, but then, why would it be? Instead of shutting myself off, I listened to the encouragement from other surfers, and then I tried again. These days, instead of standing up on my surfboard, I'm now lying down, and I can still experience the same sense of excitement and thrill shooting along the face of a wave. And the best part of all is sharing waves with my boys. Nothing makes me happier than surfing and just having a laugh together. In 2018, I entered the Australian Adaptive Surf Titles and was thrilled to make it onto the Australian surf team. After countless wipeouts and hold downs, it was all starting to come together. I was in America to compete at the ISA World Adaptive Surf Championships. As Cam and I were heading down the beach, I realised that my defining life passions had come together in a completely new way. Cam and I were travelling again, discovering new things, meeting wonderful people from all around the world, feeding off their infectious joy, and sharing the best of ourselves to help others as well. Now, I must admit, I was pretty nervous before competing, but I wasn't alone. Cam and Josh, the Australian coach, were both in the water with me. Now, Cam's role was to help me pick the best waves and push me onto them, while Josh, the coach, helped me paddle back out. After making it through to the finals, Cam and I had no idea who was actually winning. And it wasn't until the hooter had sounded and I'd caught my last wave into the beach when the Australian team rushed over to congratulate me and told me that I'd won. I'd just become a world champion. As the only woman on the team, I felt incredibly proud to represent Australia. And when I spotted my 3 boys, they were all grinning from ear to ear. The look of joy and pride on their faces is an image I would cherish forever. Now, despite our lives being difficult and challenging at times, at that moment, we're on top of the world. And as you can see, for once in my life, I was taller than everybody else. Frequent lows and rare highs, gravel and diamonds. That's what almost everyone's life journey looks like, and mine is no exception. Perhaps my lows are a little lower than most, but maybe some of my highs are a little higher as well. Who's to say? When I look back at my path from despair to delight, I am shocked that so much can change for the better in such a relatively short time. Whether it's recovering from a disaster or striving for personal and professional growth, embracing change is always difficult and, in my experience, very painful. None of this comes easy to me, but it's at the heart of my daily struggle not to be limited by my injuries and be defined by misfortune. I could tell you that each of us is strong enough to adapt to anything life throws at us, but it's just not true. Yes, we're all a lot stronger than we think we are, but I still don't believe you can do it alone. I know I can't. Now, I still wish I could run down the beach with a board under my arm, but I am stoked to still be able to get back out in the water and do what I have always loved. I'm also humbled that my story has helped millions of others feel not so alone during their darkest moments, and to find strength to carry on, and if need be, ask for help instead of giving up or surrendering to self-pity. The great truth about life is that it is many things all at once, and some of those things suck, plain and simple. The remedy, to the degree that any exists, is to not let the misery of the bad prevent you from enjoying the good. And while this is far easier said than done, this is exactly how I can hate being paralysed and still be grateful to be alive. I can be deeply unhappy about my pain and disability, but still be capable of great happiness. I can feel ashamed of myself for pushing my best friend away when I was depressed, and I can enjoy rebuilding that friendship. I can regret the tragedy that befell my family in Thailand 9 years ago, and still look forward to what life has to offer. I don't know that balance is the right word. It's not all or nothing. Life is always a blend of good and bad. And while I don't pretend I'm not hurting, I can still find joy and meaning in my life. If my story has taught you anything today, it is that we are never too old or too damaged to do the things that matter most. Anything and everything can be taken away from you when you least expect it through no fault of your own. You don't have to suffer a terrible accident like I did to feel lost, unlovable, or broken. We all face different challenges every day, and life can be hard and painful for anyone. So when life seems unbearable, do your best to remain open to hope and love, even if it's from a scruffy little magpie. It's not easy, but it makes all the difference. No matter how much you hurt or how bad you feel, accepting the love of others and loving them in return to whatever degree you can will help make you whole again. Trust me, I know. Thank you.
Pumpernickel. Okay. So thank you so much. Did he play the bird to sleep right there? Oh.
She's not.
Oh, good. Oh, that's okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That was like an incredible story, and how amazing to have it like photo documented too. Like that was awesome to have that full history of everything.
Good and bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, because I used to say to Cam, stop taking my photo.
I know. So many people this weekend are like, no, don't take our photo. Don't take our photo. I was like, no, we've got to take your photo. It's, history. So we're actually having a Q&A session right now with the fabulous Jenny over here. So I'll pass over the microphone.
Thank you, Sam.
You're going to come up.
Is that working? Is that working? Yeah.
You're going to come up. Come on, Jenny.
I need my assistance,
Don't we all?
like you.
Need your pusher.
That's it. Not a dealer, just a pusher.
Thank you. I resonate with Sam's story so much because my life's changed quite dramatically. My life's changed quite dramatically. And one of the questions I'd like to ask you is my own question. Having all of this happen and then having the movie made, that was quite an intrusion in your life.
Yeah.
And like we spoke before, it's just us. You think that's helped you in your journey?
Maybe it has helped me, but I think the only good thing that has come out of it all is, and I don't like the word inspiring because I'm not inspiring, but if I have encouraged other people to kind of get out there and realise that anything is kind of possible. You know, obviously we do things differently, but you can still achieve some amazing things. So that for me, like from the books and the film, that's the one thing that I'm really thankful for. Because like I used to, well, still kind of sometimes do, but I'd get messages from people in Australia and all around the world kind of saying thank you. Because, you know, they're like, they know that, yeah, you have to think outside the square a bit, but yeah, you can still have fun and live a good life.
That's great.
Yeah.
And the other question was, you've won your championships. Where do you go from now, though?
Well, no, I have another one I have to win.
Pardon?
I have another World Championship I have to win. I've won 2, missed out last year, which I was spewing about, just saying. So in December, Cam and I have to go back to America for another World Championships. But it's totally different this time because, like I said, for 5 years, I've had Cam pushing me onto waves. And I went to Hawaii for the Hawaiian Championships in June or July. And they're like, oh, we want to reclassify you because you're looking really strong. I'm like, seriously? But all I'd done, physically I hadn't changed. I just changed my technique. Like I started digging my arm in the water to turn my board more. And so they reclassified me and they're like, nah, you have no assistance now. So I was like kind of freaking out a little bit. So yeah, in Hawaii, I was very fortunate in Hawaii because, you know, I was just thinking, all I have to do is just catch a wave so I don't make a total fool of myself. But yeah, I was pretty fortunate. The waves were really nice and it was quite gentle. So, and I was up against the world champion in my new classification. So I kind of figured I have nothing to lose. All the pressure was on her. So yeah, and I was quite lucky because I caught a couple of good waves and I beat her. But that's different. I have to try and do it again in December.
Well done.
Thanks.
Well done. Now, I've got the microphone here. Is anyone who would like to ask some questions to Sam or Cameron?
Yeah, or Cam.
Too.
Do you still have the bird?
No, we had her for 2 years, and then she flew away the night before Cam and the kids came to Italy to see me. It was weird. So she came at the perfect time and left at the perfect time because I was in a much better headspace because I was busy, you know, and I had like a goal kind of thing. A purpose, I guess you could say. So yeah, so she'd done her job and she was like, I'm out of here.
I know. I think she escaped. She'd had enough. Yeah, but she was with us for 2 years, so it was, you know, she was ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah, she was worried about that honey vat, wasn't she?
That was pure Hollywood.
Anybody else like to ask a question?
I just want to
No.
say thank you. I've got 3 levels of spinal injury and fractures, and hearing your story made me very emotional. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So incomplete spinal injury, so obviously I can't use my legs, but yeah, it was very emotional.
Oh, thanks. Sad.
It made all of us emotional.
Anybody else?
Apropos of nothing, I brought up baby birds before. I've taken lots of photographs. There was not a lot of bird poo in any of those photographs.
Oh, there was definitely shots of Sam with big stains coming down her shirt. And I actually just found one the other day with one of the boys. penguin was standing on her head, and I think he was looking up, and and I shoot like quite rapidly, and I thought, oh God, here we go, because you could always tell a bird's action. You know, they fluff their feathers, and then they lean forward, and then and I thought, oh, here's my chance, and it just dribbled right down the cheek. And actually, one of the funniest things that happened during the filming was the very first day that Naomi came on set. We had about 14 different birds. They all did different things. Some of them were babies and so on. But her first introduction to a bird, the bird trainer had put it on Naomi's head, and she was kind of nervous. She wasn't a bird person, and within a minute, all the director and everyone was standing around. This bird shat right on Naomi's head, and it dribbled down her cheek, and it went into her mouth. And the director was going, "Oh my God, we've just lost our movie star." It's like, there's no way she's going to stay on set. But she took it in her stride, and she was amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Hayley got emotional during that had to leave the room, but we had an accident in Thailand with her 3 years ago. How lovely is the Thailand hospital?
It depends which one you go to. Like, we were in a very remote spot at the time, and so the very first hospital we went to was like a little tiny clinic. They didn't speak any English. They actually did perform an X-ray on Sam, and through interpreters they said, "You got to get to a much bigger hospital." So we spent about 4 hours driving north. The boys were all bundled into this ambulance, and we were doing 160 kilometres along this road, and bumpy, and I didn't know if Sam was going to make it or not. And it was only until we got there, this beautiful private hospital, that it was really lovely. And then eventually on to Bangkok to even a better one. The Bummangrad Hospital. Yeah, a big teaching hospital. Oh yeah, I think that was the least of our worries.
You had travel insurance? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. We did, and I think wasn't it our visa?
Just.
Yeah, I think we spent like X amount of money, so then we had the insurance from our visa, because it's expensive. I think the bill was like 80 grand or more just for the operation. Is that right? I don't know. My memory is pretty sketchy, but and then I assumed we paid for our airfare home.
No, that's travel.
Oh, okay, yeah, but no, it's not cheap.
No.
No. So yes, always have insurance.
Oh yeah.
Because you never know what's going to happen. Yeah.
Anybody else? No. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Thanks for listening to our story
Oh, it's
and
beautiful.
inviting us here. Yeah, it's been real cool.
Thank you.